In a few moments, I will sign a historic executive order instituting reciprocal tariffs on countries throughout the world.
President Trump's sweeping global tariffs for more than 90 countries have come into effect.
Here's the weird thing about power. People in charge often sign off laws they know, absolutely know, will make people's lives harder. Not by mistake, not as some tragic accident of policy, but with full briefings, warnings, and impact assessments. And yet, they still do it. If you've ever looked at the news and thought, how is this even legal? Or how do they sleep at night? You're not alone. The answers are messy, and they say more about human psychology than about villains with bad intentions. This isn't a story about corruption. It's a story about how people, smart, strategic people, can justify harm when it's framed as necessary, hidden behind statistics, or aimed at groups they've learned not to care about.
Throughout my political career, I have campaigned only on issues. I believe that every individual who runs for office must submit his entire political career.
Cruelty in politics rarely arrives snarling. It walks in carrying a spreadsheet. The numbers are clean. The charts look objective, and the harm abstract. This is the identifiable victim effect. We're wired to feel more for a single person than 1,000 anonymous ones. Psychologist Paul Slovich calls it psychic numbing. As suffering increases, our emotional responses decrease. So leaders frame damage in ways that don't trigger empathy, marginal effects, efficiency savings, a small percentage of people. It's not that the suffering isn't real, it's that we just stop feeling it. And you'll see this everywhere you go. In politics, we have collateral damages. In business, it's a 10% headcount reduction. Even in your personal life, you're overreacting. How to fight all this? Well, you have to ask the question numbers can't answer. Who exactly will this hurt, and what's their name? Not all harm comes from hatred. Sometimes it comes from calculus. Machiavellianism is about holding on to power, not protecting people. It's cold strategy dressed as leadership. The question isn't, is this right? It's, will this keep us in power? That's why you see bills that hurt vulnerable people spun as tough but necessary. That's why regulations are axed, not because they're broken, but because it plays well to a base. The psychology here is far from broken. It's strategic, it's tactical. Harm becomes a line item. And why does this matter? The more polarized we become, the more leaders can justify hurting the other side.
Well, much of the polarization in U.S. politics today really began almost a decade ago in the 2016 U.S. presidential election.
Big cruelty rarely shows up all at once. It arrives in pieces. Psychologists call it the foot in the door effect. Agree to something small and you're more likely to agree to more later. In politics, this means a minor eligibility tweak today, a temporary funding freeze next month, and by the end of the system or the end of the year, what you've experienced is unrecognizable from where you started. Ethical fading makes it easier to justify harm in small doses. Each step seems survivable until one day it isn't. How do you spot it? Watch for policies that slowly shift over time. Ask how today's small change fits into a longer pattern. It's easy to accept suffering when you believe that the person deserved it. Psychologist Melvin Lerner called this the just world hypothesis, and it's the belief that people get what they deserve and deserve what they get. And in politics, that's become weaponized. Cut school meals, parents should be more responsible for feeding their kids. Slash unemployment, well, they should have worked harder. Once hardship becomes a moral failing, cruelty starts to look like justice. And where it shows up? In job loss blame, in victim shaming, in every comment that starts with, well, maybe if they had just ... How do we combat this? Challenge the narrative. Ask what systems, not just the choices, led to the outcome that we're now talking about.
That is absolutely unacceptable. How dare you attack
meeting
the
will suspend,
physical
meeting will
appearance of another
suspend.
person?
Are your feelings
Her
hurt?
words.
Put like-minded people in a room, and they don't just agree, they get more extreme with time. This is called group polarization, and in politics, it turns bad ideas into policy. Because inside echo chambers, party caucuses, social media, private boards, dissent is dangerous, and loyalty becomes more important than the truth. What might seem outrageous in public can feel righteous behind closed doors. Why does this matter to us? Because this dynamic shows up in any group, chat, workplace, online space, because when everyone starts to agree with each other, watch out. When we experience this, keep a dissenting voice in the room. Seek it out if it's missing.
Now to the Families Belong Together march. Thousands of protesters braved the heat and marched in the Loop.
Now these aren't just theories we've been speaking about, they're real. Let's look at some examples. In 2018, thousands of children in America were taken from parents, and it was justified as deterrence. UK universal credit streamlined benefits, but caused huge distress, and they framed it as simplification. The bedroom tax, a housing cut that hit disabled people, sold as fairness.
But I'm really concerned about the impact of the sweeping welfare reform, so not just the bedroom tax in isolation, but the impact of universal credit benefit cap.
The US welfare reforms, fewer people got help, more ended up in deep poverty. In every case, the harm was known, the framing is what did the work of convincing you it was fine to do it. Now you can't stop every bad law, but you can learn to see the harm before the signatures dry. Here's what you should look out for, wherever you are. Harm disguised as numbers, euphemisms for pain or suffering, cuts dress up as fairness, rooms where no one pushes back. This isn't about politicians, it's about us, our workplaces, our families, our friendships. Because the same psychology that lets a parliament pass a harmful bill is the same psychology that lets a group of friends turn on another. Breaking the spell starts with making harm possible. Name the person behind the number. Challenge the frame. Refuse the just world lie. Invite dissent. Because policies don't drift towards cruelty on their own, they drift because no one notices the small steps. Catch those steps and you can stop them from becoming something unrecognizable.